Now the recording is in progress, and so I'll immediately establish contact with my partner in crime, Pat McArt. How are you this morning, Pat?
I'm Jude. I'm in a slightly different location. I'll not disclose where.
Yeah, yeah. But you feel at home most places anyway, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. But you just settle down and enjoy it.
Yeah. You're like Daniel O'Donnell, people clasp you to their bosom no matter where they are.
Wouldn't go that far, but there you go. Don't know the analogy with Daniel O'Donnell. That could play both ways.
Daniel's all right. We might talk about him later on. Okay, let's get to the meat of the matter. Oh God, we seem to have been doing this for ages, and it's only really a month. But the whole situation between Gaza and Palestine and Israel just goes on and on and on. Are you seeing any pictures of events?
Yeah, where I am, Jude, I'm myself and my son are out in Spain for a week, and I've got to admit I've been traveling about a bit, and we've been staying in various places.
Yeah,
and it's one of these sort of what do you say? They just decided at the last minute to come here, but I've been sort of following the news a wee bit.
Yeah.
And Jude, when I sit down at night, I sort of go through it, and it seems to be just getting worse. And what is it now? Is it 9,000 dead Palestinians? Like, Jude, when are there enough dead Palestinians to satisfy the West? Jude, there's 2 points I'd like to make. Keir Starmer seems to be saying now that he didn't say it was all right to turn off the water, and it wasn't all right. It was all right to turn off the food and all the rest. He said now that he didn't say. He most definitely said that Israel was entitled to do it. And the second point I would make to it, the day now, the next time anybody from America or Britain or any of the Western stands up and says what Russia did in Ukraine is wrong, while those very same people are sitting silent and actually actively supporting Israel, what they're doing to Gaza. The hypocrisy is a hypocrisy on steroids. And I don't think even the most moderate person, Jude, I think at this stage, can only call out their hypocrisy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Pat. I heard a figure that the way it was put was this: half the population of Gaza is under 18, but the way somebody put it was every 10 minutes a child is killed in Gaza. Now, just take that home. Supposing in the Guildhall Square in Derry, every 10 minutes, a child was to be taken out and shot dead in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And then another 10 minutes, another one was taken out. After a while, another one was taken out. What do you think the reaction of people would be? Or wherever, the middle of Letterkenny, middle of Moville, middle of Burke, whatever.
Anywhere.
How would the populace react to that? There'll be no question. Everybody would be appalled. And they would jump on the gunman or whoever was doing the killing, and they would kill him probably. It just simply, human nature, any sense of justice or a fellow feeling would demand that. And yet, this has been going on and on and on and on. There must be about 4,000 children killed in Gaza now. That's sort of horrific. And, what you just said, when you ask these people, do you believe in doing this kind of thing? Do you believe that people should be able to keep their borders safe by going and killing other people? Would they be in favor if the Ukrainians were to invade Leningrad or somewhere and start butchering people? It really is just beyond words. And I think a lot of Western leaders, particularly, as you've indicated, they've been found out on this. They will not, Starmer, Rishi Sunak, Joe Biden, they won't say Israel, a ceasefire at the very least, a ceasefire now, enough's enough. They don't do that. They say, let's have a pause, please, let's have a pause. Take that again to that thing, my image of the middle of the Guildhall Square, Derry, of a child killed every 10 minutes. Suppose you went up to the guy after he killed his 20th child and you said, okay, now I want you to take a pause in this. In other words, stop there for about half an hour, and then, by implication, you can go on and do it again. I just think it's bloody outrageous. This notion of terrorist or respectable government, that's out the window now, as far as I'm concerned. I would distinguish not between people who are terrorists and non-terrorists. I distinguish between people who are killers and people who are not killers. And
remember Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN? Last week he said that what Hamas had done was horrific, etc., etc. But he said, let's get it. It didn't happen in a vacuum. I said, basically, there's 50 years of ill treatment of the Palestinians, denied statehood, denied rights, denied even proper food and education and employment prospects and so on. The next thing, the Israeli ambassador said his remarks were almost a stain on humanity, and this guy should not have any rights to be in charge of it. The arrogance and the hypocrisy of that. In other words, basically the Israelis have got so used to having American support and Britain support that you're not even allowed to say what they do is wrong. And you're 100% right. Know the difference between Israel and Hamas. It's getting blurred every day, because if somebody wants to tell me, oh, wait a minute, Hamas did some horrible things, but if you carry out 7,000, imagine that was, by the way, last week, I presume it's considerably more, 7,000 raids on quote-unquote military targets in Gaza. Jude, on a place, as we have mentioned quite a few times, about the same size as Inishowen, which is only a minor part of Donegal. And they've said they hit 7,000 military targets. Jude, that is the biggest load of hooey. They were hitting schools, they were hitting refugee centres, they were hitting hospitals, they were hitting private homes. Jude, there can't be 7,000 military targets in a place that small. And Jude, I think they've hit a refugee centre 3 times this week alone. They've also hit, they told people move south. They've hit those people moving south. And the West, I think Starmer, as of all the people, is the most disgraceful. It's the most despicable. Dude, anybody in charge of a Labour Party said it was all right to turn off the water, the food, the electricity, the fuel supply to people already getting bombed to smithereens. I think that's disgusting.
But it all comes back, Pat. This is horrible to say, but all that it comes back to is getting elected. Starmer's doing that because he believes that'll improve the chances of the Labour Party getting elected. Now, I see where some councillors, some Muslim councillors in the north of England, I think it is, have resigned their posts. And I heard one of them talking today and on the radio, and God, he was talking good sense, He was saying, what's the point in me being a Labour councillor if the leader of the Labour Party is the best he can get himself around to is calling for a pause, and even that's a question mark over it. I don't know how anybody with conscience could associate themselves with him.
Jerry, I really don't understand. We have been doing this territory before, but Starmer is a leader of a Labour Party. I just find it absolutely unbelievable. He doesn't stand for a single thing that I understand to mean, if you're a Labour, you're supposed to be on the side of the oppressed. You're supposed to be on the side of the working person. You're supposed to be on the side of the underdog. You're supposed to be trying to make peace and justice. Like Starmer is actually more to the right than Rishi Sunak on this.
There's something horrible about the way Starmer made that statement and then said, I didn't say that. Yeah, and there it was. This thing was recorded, like you could see it and hear it.
Yeah.
It's shameless hypocrisy. Shameless bloody hypocrisy.
Excuse me.
And a lack of ability to stand and, make a stand and say the things you believe in. So if he believes that the kind of thing he said about the situation in Gaza, then, why is the Labour Party such a cowardly lot that they get rid of the likes of Jeremy Corbyn, who brought in hundreds of thousands of new members, and they would keep Sir Keir Starmer. The old thing about when somebody says there's a football match on and they tell you where the two teams are playing, and you say, could they both not lose, maybe? As far as I'm concerned, of Rishi Sunak and Starmer in this next election, if they both could lose, that would.
Here's a question for you. There's somebody said it would be better voting for Starmer than for the Tory party. now come to the conclusion, I am not sure that stands up anymore. I would nearly rather vote now the Conservative Party than the Labour Party on the very simple basis. I know thine enemy.
Well, I suppose there's that, but on the other hand, they haven't. You could say that at least Starmer hasn't inflicted hardship on people, whereas Sunak has. The record for the last 13 years in England has been just grinding people.
I would love to know where I could plant my flag, because the Labour Party that I knew or understood its values, Starmer doesn't stand for. He gave a whole lot of pledges when he stood for leader, and he has broken every one of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not a problem either of us will be faced with, despite our different jurisdictions. Thank God for that.
Thank God, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to another one. It's been quite prominent because instead of being absorbed in the slaughter in Gaza, our friend Rishi has been manning a AI conference, world conference, and apparently wanted all the big leaders to come in, like Germany, Schultz and so on of Germany, but they didn't bother their Barney. They stayed at home.
Yeah.
But they did send a number. There was a number of pretty big hitters in there. What do you think of the idea? Is it time well spent looking at AI? And
well, Jude, I hear what Elon Musk said something yesterday about AI. It could be, a sort of a friend, or it could be an enemy of mankind.
Pat, do we need to spell out, just in case our listeners, AI, artificial intelligence, okay?
Artificial intelligence. I just remember, here, I'll turn that back. And you remember a couple of months, I had never heard of ChatGPT. And you told me, Pat, I have a wee granddaughter over in England, and I wanted to see how AI or ChatGPT could do it. So you told it, write 500 words for a granddaughter living in England. You said it came back to you. It was so good. You thought, geez, I'd be nearly proud to have written that myself. So that was done after about 5 minutes or something. You told me.
Oh, far less than that. I would say within 1 minute. Actually, it's funny that we're talking about that on Radio Ulu this morning. Malachy O'Doherty, blesses himself quickly, was speaking about it and making the point, which I thought was quite chilling. He said, not only could you get ChatGPT or these various forms of AI to write 500 words on whatever it might be, but you could get them, Pat, could get them to write your Daily Mirror, your Irish Daily Mirror column in the style of Pat McArt. Now, I haven't tried that. I'm going to try that and see what it looks like in terms of myself, or maybe you.
Yeah, I know. My son, the techie guy, one day, just for a bit of crack, he says, "Right, I'll put in your name and see what happens." Now, Jude, there's a couple of absolutely glaring errors in the middle of it. Like, I think I nearly won the Nobel Prize or something in the middle of it. But having said that, Jude, just by putting in my name, there was a lot of stuff that came up that, I thought, geez, I'd forgotten that. So, but anyway, Jude, Noam Chomsky said, it isn't intelligence. It's the world's best plagiarism system. It just plagiarizes everything anything that's ever been written about you. It's been diverted or culverted into this stream where you can write it. But having said that, it's well done.
Oh, it's right. I mean, that's hugely impressive that it can do that, bring these things together. And not only does it bring them together, but it puts them together in a very sort of logical form in the article that it writes. I remember when I was teaching students, I used to be going on about this, have an introduction, have your points laid out one after the other, and then maybe conclude by reminding people of what you've done. But they do that, but there's something missing. I mean, apart from the inaccuracies, they'll throw in, like I had me born in Derry, spent my life working in Dublin. So there's weaknesses in it. I think even though all of it was accurate, there's a certain bloodlessness about it. Do you think?
Yeah,
it's very vanilla prose.
But Jude, the thing, I have to put this on the record. My wife has a genuinely lovely singing voice. I am absolutely tuneless. But there's this thing now, I think it's in tune. If I go along and record a song and I'm out of tune, They can flick a few buttons and I'm suddenly into. So the whole idea of human talent is going out the window, and AI reminds me of that. In other words, like it's comparing somebody like Katie Minogue with Frank Sinatra. Like Katie Minogue sounds the same all the time, and I think she's one of the least talented singers I've ever come across.
Mm.
But she sounds as good as Dean Martin or Frank Sinatra or some any of the great opera singers. And that's totally ridiculous, dude. Because half the time, apparently, when she's singing live, she's out of tune.
Yeah, but nobody minds because she looks so nice. Apparently,
Yeah.
apparently, I was going to say something. I won't say it. Okay,
no, don't bother yourself.
One of the things that the star of the show at this conference said, Elon Musk, was that there'll come a time. He didn't say when, but he said there'll come a time when, thanks to artificial intelligence, nobody will need to work. Do you think he's right?
No, Jude, no. Don't think so. Jude, come here. Who's going to plant the spuds? Who's going to lift the spuds? Who's going to serve you a cup of? No, Jude, no. Myself and my son were out this morning. We went out and got a cup of coffee and all the rest of it. If you think a machine can serve you coffee and deliver it outside,
a robot could do that easy.
I find it very hard to believe, Jude. And as well as that, okay, maybe it's technically possible, but I don't think mankind would want it. I certainly wouldn't.
Well, I wouldn't want it either. But it's very, very difficult to stop something once the potential is there. Human nature is push on, and I mean, they knew what they're doing when they invented the atom bomb, but they kept on, developing. And it wasn't even needed, I think they used it terribly. Yeah. But anyway, no, I think I think they can do it. Definitely, they can do it. Where you'd be at a point where there'd be very, very little work, and what it would be very limited. It'd be pushing the odd button. But I think the far more interesting question is: would you want to live in a world with no work?
No, not at all, Jude. I think.
Weren't we cursed when we were? I thought we were all cursed when they were thrown out of the Garden of Eden because we earn our bread by the sweat of our brow.
Well, here. It's funny you've brought up something that I had the conversation with my eldest son all of about 20 minutes ago. We were coming back from a wee village just down the road, and there's council workmen out cleaning the streets. They're out painting the sidewalks. They're out with those things, to lift up leaves. I can't remember the name, the blowers or something they're called. Right. And everywhere I look, there's work going on now by the local council. My wife goes bananas about if we go somewhere to the beach and you look around, there's nowhere to put in, a crisp packet and all the rest. And if you do find one, it's usually overflowing because nobody's bothered their backside. Now, here's the thing, Jude. Apparently in Spain, the social welfare system is not that great. In Ireland and the Republic particularly, it's very, very good. So somebody has made choices along the way. And Spain, the services are very good. The health service here, everybody I've talked to says the health service is very good. Our health service is crap. And the NHS has fallen down. So somewhere along the way, people have made choices. Now, but you asked a question about work, and myself and my son said, look, I would prefer, rather than be on the dole, he said, I would nearly take anything rather than sit in the house. He says, I just couldn't sit doing nothing. I would have to be doing something. And he says, I would rather take nearly any work than be on the dole. I wonder, is that the difference in Spain, that you have to go out and get work because you simply won't get a very good dole?
Yeah, for me, it wouldn't be attached to that. Wouldn't be the main problem. My main problem would be nothing to do. If I was sitting in the house and I had nowhere to go and nothing to do, I'd go off my bloody chump. I really would. I think I am, and I suspect you are to some extent a workaholic. I find the greatest satisfaction from. See, I used to talk with my siblings and friends and stuff about the whole notion of work. And so many of them would groan and say, "Oh, geez, I hate my job." I had my brother-in-law was had a wee pub in the Guildhall, City of the Guildhall, and he complained about it and he hated it. And I'm so glad to get from behind that bloody bar when he retired. For me, my work, there was hardly a day I went in that I wasn't enjoying it. I know there were down moments, but there were very few. And that old dictum, find a job that you enjoy and you'll never work a day in your life. I believe that my job was exactly that. I really, really enjoyed it. And without that structure to my day, I think I'll go a bit crazy. Would you find about that as you're working the day journal over the years, Pat?
Jude, the last thing, in fact, anybody comes along even now and asks me to do something, by and large, Jude, if I can do it, I will, on the simple basis. The last thing I want to be doing is sitting somewhere looking at the wall. I want to be, doing this with you. Doing various columns with various people. I do various, and by the way, Jude, it's just simply I want to keep the brain ticking over. The last thing I would like or want to be doing is sitting in the chair on a winter's evening looking at Judge Judy.
I never seen Judge Judy, but some people told me it wasn't bad at all. Work is such an interesting thing. Why is it that so many people hate their jobs? You see, there's where artificial intelligence could come in, because most people hate their jobs. I remember working in the factories in England when I was a student. Jeez, I hated that work. I hated it. It was so boring. Sweeping down yards and lifting peas out, and just, your brain wasn't engaged at all. I hated it. And I used to really pity people that had to go in every day. No wonder they wanted to be out of that job. No wonder they look forward to retirement. But I was lucky enough that I got a job, and it, that had its flaws like everything else. But by God, it was wonderful for me compared to what most people seem to be suffering.
Jude, at one stage when I think I was at St. Eunan's, and they took us on a wee factory trip it was called Oatfield Sweets in Letterkenny. And anyway, there was this sort of round thing, and a girl, as each knows, some sort of specialized sweet, and there was a wee round hole, and she put individually, she had on gloves, she put each one, and it wrapped each sweet. And I remember saying to the guy who's the manager, I said, "That must be soul destroying." Well, he just dismissed what I said. He said, "Oh, she's in her own wee world. She doesn't even notice."
Well, maybe that's what people do. They learn to switch off and then somehow or another continue doing the job, but they head somewhere else. But it's a pity it has to be the case. I think work's such an interesting thing. So many jobs are kind of soulless, and so many jobs are obviously right. I remember my son, well, he reminds me of it. He said, what should he aim to do during his life in terms of employment? Yeah. And I said, well, it's very difficult, depends on your talents and all. But it'd be nice if you were in a job where in some way you were helping people. And he has always worked in one form or another with charities all through his life in England. That seems to be a most obvious example. I take my own job as a teacher or a lecturer. I'd like to think that was directly helping people. Your job as editor of the Day Journal was hugely influential and would have catered a whole lot of very important social issues of the time. I think that idea of my job is just my wee tunnel and there's not anybody else involved at all, I think that's the wrong way. If they wouldn't think about work, or jobs couldn't be organized in such a way so that people find satisfaction in them, in part at least because they were contributing to the whole society in one way or another. Do you think? Is that too?
Well, no. I think most people get bored shitless if they don't have something concrete to do. I think like teaching, like the problem about teaching, that somebody says you'll never know what difference you've made to somebody's life until somebody comes back and tells you, and so on. But like I've always held a view that a great teacher can make a massive difference to somebody's life. Jude, one simple example. When I was at Presentation Brothers in Letterkenny, there was a brother Basil, and he used to start telling stories. And Jude, I don't know what it was, but that fired my imagination. I was never going to be a scientist. I was never going to be a mathematician, but I love stories. I loved words. I loved the whole thing of narrative and telling stories. And Jude, I still think the catalyst for me going down a certain road was Brother Basil's stories every Friday evening. At about 2:30, he'd say, "Right, put away your books," and he'd start telling stories.
Isn't that
absolutely
fantastic?
Brilliant?
Isn't that fantastic? I mean, that's almost magical, and that would make that man's life, if there was nobody else, only yourself, that would make that man's life worth having lived, or the job worth doing. Imagine in a way he lit a spark, and that spark spark throughout your life, and it's still there with all the books that you read. So I just think work's far more than getting enough to keep your body and soul together. I have a little thing, maybe we've talked about this before. The thing is, when I quit lecturing at 65, I had a bunch of experience and ideas and so on that I was implementing. The day I retired, bang, all that knowledge could be jettisoned, thrown in the wastebasket. I'm sure the same thing applies to yourself. I think it's a pity that society wouldn't organize a system, a structure, or a framework so that people, if they wanted to a greater or lesser extent, and only if they wanted to, could continue the job that they were doing in some sort of voluntary setting or even minimal payment setting. Because I think that would give meaning to a lot of old lives. And I think you'd have people dying far later than they do at present. I think it's the pointlessness that gets people eventually.
I think, Jude, you've just said something. When somebody like you, like there goes a library of knowledge, just cut off. Like there must be a way of sharing. And by the way, Jude, see, when after about 20 or 30 years, you've learned a hell of a lot more. You're a lot older. You're a lot wiser. I know in other societies, wisdom of the elders is considered. They have been down the road and they cut the corners. They knew what the sharp edges were gone. Like that should be. I remember old man McCarroll, who's the owner of the journal. I remember one day getting involved in this massive row with somebody or other. I can't remember now the details. And he was sitting. I was on the phone, and I basically probably told somebody to f off, and on my normal sort of nice
sound
way.
like you at all, anyway, Pat.
No, it doesn't sound like me at all. Anyway, halfway through it, after I put down the phone, old man McCarroll, he says, Pat, can I give you a bit of advice? I was young, firebrand editor. I was only in my 20s, probably late 20s, and he said, Pat, don't expend your energy, fighting the wee fights. He says, don't go looking for trouble, or don't. He says, keep your energy for the big battles. He says, what he meant was you can have a fight every 10 minutes if you go looking for it. Don't bother spend your, like, if somebody comes in and they're half right, just give it to them. Don't go looking for the trouble. And he was so right. It was good wisdom.
But there's a guy who said to me, you have to learn to choose your battles. I think that's very good advice. I have a tendency to have had in the past, not now, I don't think, to rush into things that I saw as being blatantly wrong in terms of, statements in public and so on. If you're not going to win the battle, there's no point in going into it because you'll only get your ass kicked.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, finally, we're running out of time and I want to release you back to the sunshine and the seaside. Are you out by the sea, are you? Pat, are you by the sea? Are you by the ocean? Are you by the ocean?
No, we're sort of inland today. But we can be in the sea by the sea in about 10-15 minutes.
Oh wow, fantastic! So I don't want to keep you back from that, Pat. I wouldn't want you to throw that in my face and say you're the bugger that kept me from going and
kept me from
The last thing I say is I saw your Taoiseach, not my Taoiseach, but your Taoiseach, and he was abroad. He was in, of all places, Korea, on the border between South Korea and North Korea. And he was the shot that RTE put out was of him with sunglasses on, and he's staring sort of soulfully, like sort of Captain America figure across to where the North Korea lay. What do you think of these sort of photo opportunities that politicians go in for?
Well, some of them are actually embarrassing. You sort of go,
Skipper and Eagle came to mind.
Exactly. As Leo either going to solve the North-South Korean thing, or is he going to start it back up? What is this? Is it the 51st parallel or something? Isn't that where Korea is?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that.
And no, I said that, Jude. Ireland does punch above its weight in the terms of influence, but we're not America, we're not Russia, we're not China, we're not India, we're not even Britain, in fairness, in terms of So a lot of these things are purely photo opportunities. I don't know sorry, I'm out of touch on this one. Why is Leo in Korea?
Well, this is the thing I was just going to say. We should be fair to the poor man. The shots that they took were of him looking soulfully across this no man's land, and I was tempted to shout into the TV, "Now you know that what countries with borders look like." So the reason he's there is, of course, think for a second. South Korea is famous, like Japan and like many other Asian countries, for its IT. He's wooing some big company to come to Ireland. I think somebody said that now, but I wouldn't be at all surprised that isn't the reason. That he'll draw in more foreign direct investment, or at least companies from South Korea. And if he did so, that'd be wonderful. And that's what it takes. That's great. And if he has to do the Captain America thing, that's fine too. I'm sure he knows. I must say, I always feel uneasy when I see people, and we've just been doing it during this, going abroad to see injustices. You know, in terms of borders and things, we've got a border here. You know, Leo could spend more time thinking about that and talking about it maybe than he does with South Korea. But still,
can I tell you a wee story? We left Belfast and there's about somewhere about 7:30, 8 o'clock last Saturday morning. Here, I wasn't aware of this. Really, genuinely was not aware of this. We are on the past. If I ever gone abroad, I usually fly out of Dublin, but I flew out of Belfast. My wife must have got a cheap Ryanair flight or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So we arrived into Alicante, and because we were arriving from Belfast, we had to join the UK, the non-EU thing. And Jude, I didn't realize it took about 45 minutes to get through passport control. You know, normally when you're in the EU, you go up to the passport, you hand your passport to the guy, and you are gone in 10 seconds type thing. We were in a queue, and it was going, do you ever see at airports, the queues go around, they go down one lane, up the other lane, down the other lane, up the other lane. We were in that. And I thought that thanks, even though we have both got Irish passports, we were in the EU because we flew out of Belfast. Dude, that's another. And there's a wee pub not too far away from here. We were in it last night, and we were chatting and they're all nearly a lot of them are English. It's owned by an Englishman. Not one is in favour of Brexit. Not one.
Really?
You know, in fact, there's one woman said it was the most stupid decision. She says all it's done, she says, is isolated us. And she says, cut us off from, she says, our natural hinterland. Like, if we want to fly to Australia, that's great. Or do a trade deal with New Zealand, great. But, the nearest country they can go to is France. And the next, for sunshine, is Spain.
That's wonderful to hear that. They do say, that the polls indicate a clear majority of people in Britain would now definitely vote against or rejoin, be in favour of rejoining, or they're sorry they ever left, or whatever way the question was phrased. One final thing, Pat, and we're near time's nearly up. They say that, we talked about Michael D. Higgins, speaking out about what was happening in Gaza. And they said that they shouldn't have done that because that's not his it's not his role as president. He should be totally non-political. In theory, I agree with that, but I'm delighted that he said it just the same. I think they should change the bloody constitution and allow the president to make pronouncements far more often than they do, because what he said was absolutely true, and that the ambassador from Israel was totally in the wrong and should have been sent packing, actually. So I thought it was great that he was able to speak, but they do. I'm linking that to the fact that they say that of all the EU countries, most of them are solidly behind, or a lot of them are solidly behind Israel. Ireland quite clearly is not solidly and exclusively behind Israel. I mean, Leo said the terrible thing that they did to Hamas. On the other hand, you need to be sure Israel doesn't leak away the sympathy of the world it has, and that's what it's done. So I feel proud of the south of Ireland, across the border, our separated brethren, that they should have done that. Stood out.
Yeah, no, but I saw a thing last night. Anthony Blinken was at some thing in America, the American Foreign Secretary, or I can't remember their term for it. Anyway, the bottom line of it was one protester after another started shouting, "Stop killing in Gaza, ceasefire now." And one woman shouted, she says, 66% of Americans want a ceasefire. So, Jude, I think a lot of the governments are out of touch. Jude, that was a hell of a big march in London last weekend. And a lot of people in Britain, I was watching Question Time on the night before I left,
Yeah.
The white woman now, because there were a lot of people of Asian, but so he said what's happening in Gaza is disgusting. Got a massive round of applause, and she says, "I don't like the government's attitude." Do you know? I think that a lot of the governments are out of touch with their people. I don't buy for a second that the people in France like what's happening in Gaza. I don't believe for a second people in Germany like it. I certainly don't think the Brits like it, because every time somebody condemned what was happening in Gaza, got a massive round of applause.
And yet the EU's official stance is, we are totally behind Israel and defense of its borders and so on. I'm not pointing out that they're bloody. The US is, of course, the prime mover and supplies weaponry and so on. But they do say that what's going on abroad, except at the Vietnam War or something, it doesn't tend to affect who's elected president. That's what the polls indicate. I find that astonishing. I would have thought there'd be a very strong feeling about it. And I thought Trump had tapped into something, because his line was "Make America Great Again" by bringing the troops home and so on. I'm not fighting for
only 10% of Americans have got passports.
That's right. Yeah. They're happy to live their life. It's such a wildly varied country, because so many different areas to it. On the other hand, I do think that there's a tendency for people to think American all the time and not believe that there's other views that might be from other countries. Okay, Pat, we've scraped the pot once again. We have scattered wisdom across Europe,
everywhere,
at least across Europe, and maybe across the States as well. Are you going to have a splendid day today? I believe you're ending your...
today's really our last day, because we'll have to head to the airport tomorrow. So today's the last day. So, and the sun's shining, Jude, so you can't knock it.
Hard to beat. And what time are you flying off?
I'm flying off tomorrow evening. So, we'll have a part of a day tomorrow, and that's it.
Okay.
So I'll see you Monday.
Slán August.
Slán August.
Okay.
Bye, Jude. See you later. Bye, Slán.